I guess you get some pictures of my background. Okay. I'm trying to think of even how to start this. How do we? Um. Well, welcome to the channel. We're doing a video on. I guess I was gonna do the Mandela effect, but like, I feel like it's better to like go back into what we were talking about the other day because I feel like we need to like finish that topic.
Okay.
Like, how you feel about that? Do you remember what we talked about the other day?
Remind me fully.
So we were getting into the concept of trying to think that you don't think there's an inherent meaning,
Oh yeah.
and then I was explaining to you why I think there is, but that I think that you create that meaning, and then I was explaining how reality worked.
Yeah, but just because you create it does not mean that it is an inherent. That's not what inherent means.
So
I think
think
something beyond you, whether you believe it or not. It is.
I
a
think
thing that's just existing.
I think that I'm using the same word, and I know it fucks with you, and I kind of do it on purpose, but I think that I agree with what you say. That you might be right. I don't know if I believe in inherent meaning either, but not to the same end.
Mm-hmm.
Because to say the same end would mean that if there's no inherent meaning, then it really does leave it up to you on deciding what that means. But like, there's no looming person over you saying that there needs to be an inherent meaning, right? I guess that's where that comes from.
Yeah, depends on like the society that you live in. A lot of people's.
No, but we're not. No, go ahead.
There's kind of like this thing where like it does go because then people go into like their more morality about it and try to force that on other people because they're like it is inherent. It's like the same type of argument that the Bible is real because it says it's real. You know, gets in that type of territory.
Okay, I see what you mean. Okay.
You know,
I guess I've always tried to look at the idea of the truth, and then if there was a truth, what is the truth? And then I guess it is a personalized experience, but then I'm trying to think of like what to do with that. And I'm always at a place where I feel like how do I if I'm in a place that I feel like I'm at, how do I bring other people to the same place but without forcing them to that place and then having them feel like they want to be there or they're there for their own reasons?
my answer they would have to come to you, I guess. You have to first probably advertise it or whatever, you know.
But okay,
Put it out there at least.
But let's say that is what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And to a certain extent, that's kind of what the podcast and the whole idea is about. Yeah. Because then you are being invited, and then you're deciding to come and then decide where's the place that you sit at. You know, and then I try and explain, and I really liked what I was getting into there. I really do feel like our brains, like I feel like I finally cracked the code. This is what I was thinking to myself. I feel like our brains are quantum computers that is somehow a reality matrix that projects the reality in front of you. And so if we were to look at reality outside of us, then there'd just be nothing. It would just be energy. We'd just be consciousness. We'd just be floating around or whatever. And so the only thing that makes any of this have any validity to it is us. And there's a collective consensus to what that means. But because we even decided this before we came to Earth, and this, I guess, but then it gets a little confusing because then it thinks, well, was this set up? If my belief is that Earth is a school and that you reincarnate here as a sort of test to advance to the next level, and that Earth is somehow some kind of like ascension step for your soul. And so like any life that you live is arbitrary because all exists within the quantum sense and everything is happening here and now at the same time, past, present, and future. If that's all true, then that would mean that that would mean there would be in a meaning or an inherent truth to this reality specifically. because then I'm also under the pretenses that there are other universes, other realities, other planes of existence. And so this specific reality then would be set up for your consciousness, to not even call it a soul, just your consciousness, to experience something so inherently unique and your own that you would only assume it to be your experience and individual, but then we're having this collective thing going on, because then you're also having to forget that you're part of the collective, and then
Mm.
having to navigate through these challenges or these experiences in the collective without realizing that you're of the collective.
Yeah.
Is that interesting?
No, no. Yeah, like I'm kind of on. I understand the wavelength that you're going
You
on.
see what I mean now?
Yeah.
And so if the purpose was we were all handed out a pamphlet, um it was an introductory to whatever this is,
Yeah.
then we all decided to sign up for it, and we all were in the same class, same school, whatever, quote unquote. And so then we all made deals and contracts and decisions to then come here and do the same thing. Like, oh, you're gonna be the guy that murders me at 30. You're gonna be the guy that is gonna, teach me about baseball. You're gonna be the one that's gonna be my wife. You're gonna be the, you know what I mean? And I know that
Yeah.
sounds like silly, I guess, but like, what if that's what it is?
Yeah.
And
Well,
then we all like shake hands
if
on
I
it.
play like devil's advocate, in a little bit, and like also in like kind of in a different type of thing. On anyway, sorry.
No, say what you want to
I've
say.
been fucking drinking. We've all been
We've been
drinking.
drinking a little bit.
Yeah. But anyway, what I was trying to say is that some people think that you get to a point where you just deal every person in a certain way, like in a level-headed space, and just deal with them. That would be, I guess, in this mindset, the most highest of yourself would deal with it.
What? Okay. What do you mean by that? Can you elaborate a little
Yeah,
bit?
sure. Like, well, you just everyday life, there's some people that are just, even when you are nice to them and do like the quote unquote right thing, they're still like dicks to you. So then you just, for example, like, I see just a thing in my head right now where like you would just say certain things, and even if they are just like so like, ugh, whatever, I think you whatever about it, still like being a dickhead about it, that whether they learn or not or whatever they get out of that experience and that exchange, that you had your side of the exchange and you were at a quote unquote enlightened space about it, where it didn't affect you necessarily like it would affect the average person, but it affect you in like a meditative state of like understanding the human nature and how to deal with it, and still be in quote unquote enlightened space about it without getting too mad, or understanding that you are upset, but that you're not going to let that overtake you or like control what you want to actually happen, instead of just thinking back, I wish this should have happened. You already are at that space of what you want to happen because you have like the full will and concentration of what you want to do. Like you evaluate it in like an articulate way within the time frame that you have.
I feel like that's what I would call kind of being the observer.
Right.
And on this kind of thought process, I come across information that is interesting me all the time, where someone said the most spiritual shift that you could have is when you realize that you are the observer. And
Mm-hmm.
what that means is then you observe your own thoughts. You observe your own actions as a happening, not something that you're controlling. And so then if you're having this internal moment, you realize that you're not the body and you're not the mind. You're the one observing these things. So if your thoughts just happen and your body just makes actions because you're going through the motions, then you're the observer watching this take place. And yes, that means you do have a certain level of control, but if you realize that your thoughts are not your own and you're just witnessing them, then there's this sort of moment that happens. I was gonna have you read it, but I'm trying to give you the basic recollect from off the top of my head. Is that there's sort of a stillness and silence. You always ask me, how do I get to this place? How do I come to these thoughts or these ideas? It's, I guess, because I'm already assimilating that I'm just me. And to explain what just me is I'm the silence in between the spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just the observer. I'm just the one feeling out these moments, but I'm not like too attached to the idea of like what it is or how it is. And sure, that comes from a very highly meditative state or space, or sort of higher end version of thinking. But this is kind of like where a lot of that goes, to just to give it cadence, to say, well, I'm not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Then the idea of perfect, or maybe not perfect, maybe perfect's the wrong word. I have a different definition of perfect, but to say it like that would mean that I'm always trying to share thoughts of things that are going to sound more on the higher end, even if I'm not always putting them to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are all still human, we're all still going through a journey and experience. And regardless of what that journey or that experience means for the individual, you know, I guess I always feel like, because of my perspective, I always want to give it, we talk about it looking like it's too fantastical, the way that I explain things.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I see things from more of a scientific perspective, and I'm trying to explain the non physical realm with physical explanations. What if your body could pick up something that's not physical, then what would your physical reaction be to that? If there's information that I'm privy to that is not physical, and there's no real tangible proof of these things, then how do I know these things? How do I feel these things? They talk about the senses, but nobody tries to really think about the sixth sense. We don't just have five senses, we have six senses. And the sixth sense is your um eye behind the eye. It's the mind's eye. When you're looking at things with the mind's eye, you're perceiving things that are here, but they are esoteric in nature, or spiritual, or non-corporeal, however you want to use these labels. But these labels are of the energy that you can't see, you know and then to go circle back around to light spectrums, or science, we see such a tiny fraction of light spectrum. If our eyes are, if seeing the world is how you believe in reality, and your eyes are how you perceive reality, then we're fucking blind
Mm-hmm.
to whatever this is. And that's why I feel like you have to use your mind, because there's no way you're ever going to see all of reality with what we that's why I say it's not words. I'm just reminding myself of what I was saying, because I listened to it on my lunch earlier today, on what we had the conversation about previously.
Right.
But it's just, um if all of reality is happening here in the same moment, and time doesn't exist, time is a concept that we feel here on earth in this incarnation, then the only reason we don't perceive those things is because it's out of our perception. So we can't comprehend it. And there are moments when people reach that state, whether it's an altered state of consciousness, whether it's a new state of consciousness, whatever it is. Maybe it only happens for 10 minutes. Maybe it only happens for a second. But they're able to see past this physical plane. I feel like that's what happens when people have these moments that they talk about. And there's only so many ways you can explain it. We all have different ways of explaining it. But in works and talks with working with the other side, to give it a quote unquote, that's what I mean when I feel like I'm saying I'm working with things. A lot of witchcraft, a lot of chaos magic works with working with the other side, the astral plane, the spiritual plane, the non physical. You're doing something that has your physical mind that's working with it, and you're trying to enact a change in the world with doing something that's not physical. There are times when you're going to use physical tools. A lot of magic is practical magic that involves physical tools, but a lot of it is psychic. A lot of it is very mindset oriented, and a lot of it is based on intention. An
Mm-hmm.
intention that has a will, your own will to it. And so you're affecting and changing reality with your will,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, I guess that's kind of to circle back to kind of give more on the witchcraft or magic or side of things or chaos magic. The reason I feel like I always make it known, not that I want to push it on anyone, but make it known that I practice magic is because I feel like magic is the stepping stone to reaching these states, because you are taking full autonomy or full control of your own self, and then through learning and understanding what magic is, you're realizing who you are, where you are, and what you are. And that was kind of what we were talking about before. Is I was trying to say, I feel like if we knew what we were, who we are, and where we are, it would change the whole game.
Right.
And I feel
Yeah.
like magic is the stepping stone. At least it has been for me. Because when you learn magic and you go through that, and I call it magic because I don't want to just talk about specifically witchcraft. When you look into the craft, you have to unlearn a lot of things that society has programmed us to believe is true. And when you do this, it takes you outside of the collective understanding, and then you come and divulge yourself into a new level of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And that has brought me to the place that I'm at now. Maybe I guess I was always at that place, and I was fighting it. This is I'm talking about at least myself in that, but it doesn't really matter. That's not the point. The point is coming into yourself, believing yourself, trusting yourself, and then moving from that place. What are the things that you feel most strongly about, and trusting that intuition? Your gut feeling will tell you, your body will tell you what's right and what's wrong, and you just know that, right? Because you asked that question: how do we know what's right and what's wrong? Well, you're going to have a very strong reaction to something that you don't feel comfortable with if it's not right, or if it's not wrong for you. And that's where that idea of true right or wrong comes from. If it is a collective, it's fine, but you're really going to know if you don't like something, or something's just obviously not right, because you're not going to be able to ignore that.
Yeah. But
And
that's
the
off.
and yeah, maybe we can argue that some people could shut that off or whatever, but that's what I
Well,
mean, is it's about the person.
right.
you know
Well, that's why I'm saying that there's not saying like we should not defer those type of things. We should definitely have those right and wrong like standards. But the main thing that I come from that is once again, and it's about the inheritance and all that. Um, which I guess with you, I guess we could kind of move on from that even, because I think it's kind of like it doesn't matter because we understand the same way. You just take it in a different way, which is fine. But because I have similar beliefs within chaos magic. I'm just more symbolic and more psychological about it. But I definitely have a spiritual side with it. But it's more of a personal experience thing with me.
I think when Can I say something?
Sure.
I think when you reach a state of out of body experience, that
Mm-hmm.
is when I feel like you understand that you're not the body. And maybe that's the difference here.
Maybe.
Because a lot of people have had those experiences, and how do you explain that to somebody? If you're the body and you're experiencing this, and then what are you when you leave the body? We can all have our own different beliefs about the afterlife and all these things, but astral projection is a real thing, and you can learn how to do it. Anybody can do it. And when you have an out of body, quote unquote, experience, you start to develop a different idea of what's really going on here, because your consciousness shifts from being in your body to being out of your body, and then you're becoming aware of the space in between. And so if you're the observer, and that's this is where your consciousness sits, then how can you be anything if you're outside of your body, if you're not your body? And so then you have to come onto a different understanding of whatever that means for you, because you realize you're no longer connected in that way for a moment. When you have an out of body experience, you're no longer observing from your own eyes. You're observing from outside of your body. And sometimes some people even see their body while they're having this experience. If you're just the body, then what is happening? You would have to become something else. You would have to be an observer of some type to be able to be perceiving that. But that's kind of where the concept of consciousness comes from, because then you realize consciousness is just energy. And then if you're just energy, then you don't need the body. The only reason we have the body is because that's what we're doing in this lifetime right now. The point of this experience is to experience it from the physical plane to understand the other side of the coin. But if we're only ever just energy, then we're only going to have that experience. So we experience being a body so that we can experience something new. That would be the purpose. That would be the meaning. The meaning would be just to exist
Yeah.
in a physical form, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. And I feel like a lot of spiritual people believe this, but then they muddy it up with the idea that we're Christ or that we're part of Christ.
Right.
And that there's this whole other situation with that. And then it for me, it's always, different because I feel things on a deeper level. And I feel like the Christ consciousness exists, but then there's also the fake Christ consciousness, which is a collective upon understanding. But then there's also the other gods and all the other gods. And I always say I believe in everything because to me it feels like they all exist. Some way, somehow, there is energy there and they feel like they're alive. I don't know how else to explain that to you or to give any more information that, but I feel like anybody could call on any of them and they would have a real world um, example of proof for them of this deity or god doing something for them, god or goddess or whatever, because I believe in female gods as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so um in that regard, then all of them are true, you know and I guess I always had the deeper thought that we're gods already in our own rights, and that there is no, maybe there's more of like a collective thing to a certain extent, but like it gets to an interesting level. Like if you're the master of your own reality or you're controlling it, then you do sort of become a god then, in that sense, because you're
Yeah.
the observer, and then you create your own reality. You know, just take a step back and say it like this. Another concept I wanted to talk about was everything that happens to you is only a reflection of you. You're the mirror. And so every choice, every decision, every person you meet, everywhere you go, everything you do is only a reflection of you. And so the only reason things are happening that you don't like is because there are things with you that you have to deal with. And the situations that keep promoting themselves or presenting themselves within your life are reflections of the things that you don't deal with. And anytime you reach these bridges or these moments, to call them that, it is a moment in time where you can decide to deal with that situation, because that's what life does for you. It gives you these moments in time to understand and reflect on these things. And sometimes you can just take that as a moment, like in a car, and you pass by it and you don't even give it another thought, or it stops you and it makes you think about it for years on end. It just really depends on the experience for the individual.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, but I also think that sometimes there's other factors that play in like people's lives, like situations, and that it plays in people's life situations as well. Um, Especially with like people that are in like a minority group and all that, they tend to live in more slum type areas, and that's by like design within like our society and our like elitism,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And sometimes even when you do have a good attitude and mindset, you still get like fucked, you know. But I guess there's also, if you want to go on like a deeper level, there's like, well, how do you deal with that as like a personal level, on like how you react and go on with your life with that, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Which I guess there's that angle as well, you know. If I wanted to play like fence riding type thing, I guess.
I get, yeah. I mean, I do come in it from a very different perspective, that we decide this life. So if this is a character we're playing, then you decided what that character starts with. in the first place. And if that means your character starts in poverty, then I guess that's where your character starts with. But, on the more spiritual end, on what I've been learning, is you can decide to change the game whenever you want.
Mm.
And, that's kind of, something that it's one of those things where I can say it all I want, but until you experience that for yourself, it doesn't matter what I have to say. And so all I have to say is that I tried it with my own life, and I've had good results on learning how manifestation works, the law of attraction, and understanding that you are the only one in existence that is making these decisions for yourself. And so if anyone is making the decision for you, it's because you're allowing it to take place. And that doesn't mean the bad things won't happen to you. That doesn't mean the good things won't happen to you. That doesn't mean that you aren't going to have the experience you're going to have. It's that in teachings, and this isn't just like spiritual, I guess you could talk about like Buddhists and like monks or whatever. It's that everything is sort of a happening, and then you are just kind of allowing it to take place. And your attachment to these things is what creates the dissonance. The only reason it perpetuates and further is because you keep giving it energy. If it were just a happening, then things would happen and then they wouldn't happen.
Right.
They're opportunities instead of negative connotation. Everything is an opportunity. So the only reason that you're continuing the circle or the cycle is because you're upset about it and you didn't just let it pass you by. Because you can look at a rainy day and say, "Oh my God, I'm sad and I'm upset about the rainy day," or you can go, "Oh well, this is just another day."
Mm-hmm.
It just really depends on your perspective. Because I don't get sad when the rain comes. I invite it. I enjoy the rain and I like the storms. But are we gonna play outside when it's sunny, or do we play outside every day?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just kind of take what you can with it. That's I don't know. I feel like we're losing a little bit of structure here, but I feel like it was good to get some of that out, kind of free flowy.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to say any more. I think that was really good. What do
I
you think?
think I think that's good.
You think that's good? Okay, we're gonna end it there, cause yeah, we're gonna end it there. But we will have more. We're gonna do more topics. Um, just hey, keep posted.